The Wrath of Khan is about one thing: obsession. In this story, Kirk is a contradiction. He does not like getting old. He surrounds himself with these antiques to, by contrast, make him seem younger, but at the same time, he's surrounded by this, quote, boatload of children in the form of cadets that make him feel older. A well-written scene should do more than one thing, such is the case with the opening where young Lieutenant Savick undergoes the Kobayashi Maru, or the no-wins scenario. Savick is conflicted. She says the test is unfair because you cannot win. Kirk instructs the young and eager cadet that how we deal with death is at least as important as how we deal with life. These are words that Kirk seems to be reciting rather than believing. Kirk seems to be going through the motions of high command. The fact that it is his birthday only amplifies his feelings of being older. The other thing this scene does is that it disarms us. In the first 5 minutes of the film, Spock, quote, dies, and that disarms the audience. Kirk even asks Spock in the corridor, "Aren't you dead?" Spock gives him a copy of A Tale of Two Cities as a gift. Again, more than one thing is happening here. This gift establishes a friendship between these two that reaches back years. The other thing, when Kirk reads the first line of the novel, is that Spock is reminding his friend, in a subtle way, that it is the best of times for Kirk, even if Kirk does not want to believe it. Dr. McCoy visits Kirk at his home and also brings him a gift. You could almost call it a gag gift in a way, because he gives Kirk another antique, but unlike the old book that reminds you of the best of times, these eyeglasses are a not-so-subtle reminder of where Kirk is now. Not only is Kirk getting older, so is his ship. The Enterprise is now a teaching vessel. Kirk arrives on the bridge. Spock is in command of the ship while they are on a training mission. He gives command over to Lieutenant Savick. Kirk almost faints. A cadet is in the command chair. You may as well hand him a cane to go with his church lady glasses. If this wasn't bad enough, while they're out on their training mission, Kirk's old girlfriend rings him up. Carol Marcus and her son David have designed something called Genesis, intended to bring dead planets to life. She asks why Starfleet is taking control of the project away from them. Her transmission gets garbled and Kirk decides they need to investigate. First, he must consult with his most trusted friend. Spock is in command, and regulations dictate that the most senior officer must lead on an official mission. But Kirk can't just yank the chair out from under his friend. Spock can tell that Kirk is conflicted. He can tell Kirk wants command back so bad, but stepping on Spock's toes is out of the question. Only two people who have known each other and have served with each other can read between the lines on this. This friendship is earned, and the moments we get from it are truly earned moments. Kirk, Bones, and Spock learn about the Genesis device, and we get a little perspective on just what is at stake when the wrong people have that kind of power at their fingertips. Spock and Bones go back and forth about the moral sides of such power. Spock sees it as a fascinating experiment with great potential. Bones thinks it's Armageddon in a can. As not only a good commander but a good friend, Kirk knows when to let them go at it and when it is time to step in, again adding dimension to the scene. It's not just exposition on what Genesis is. We get information, but we also get insight through character exactly what it is we're dealing with. Before the discussion gets too heated, the bridge calls and says there is another Federation ship on an intercept course. Reliant has been taken over by Kirk's most powerful old foe. As the ships inch their way closer and closer, the tension is absolutely palpable. The out-of-practice Kirk is cautious. He can tell something is not quite right. After the Enterprise takes a pummeling, Kirk's opponent reveals himself. Khan has now become the biggest, scariest reminder to Kirk of just where he is in his life. It is becoming very clear not only to us but to the Admiral just how out of practice he is. On the other hand, it is Kirk's experience that saves the ship. He and Spock work together to bring down Reliant's shields. Kirk basically kicks Khan in the balls, and Khan limps away. The Enterprise now looks the way Kirk feels. People, young people barely taking baby steps out of the Academy, are dead. Their blood is on his hands. Here is Admiral Kirk, a senior commander, making mistakes that you would expect one of these cadets to make. Savick even quoted regulations verbatim to him before they were attacked. Kirk takes Bones and Savick on board Regula 1. The Enterprise cannot scan the interior of the station due to damage, so there is real tension as they search for survivors. They find Chekhov and the captain of the Reliant. When they beam down, they find the Genesis device along with Carol Marcus and her son David. It is clear Kirk knew about David, but David did not, however, know that Kirk is his father. Khan reveals himself yet again through the control he has over Chekhov and Captain Terrell. Khan beams Genesis aboard the Reliant, but he is not done winning. After trying and failing to get his Starfleet puppets to kill Kirk, Kirk begins to taunt Khan. It has the opposite effect, however. Kirk is trying to get Khan to tip his hand and make a rash choice, but instead, Khan, believing he has Kirk pinned in a corner, gloats and tells Kirk he is going to do far worse than kill him. He has hurt him, and he will go on hurting him. This is the first chance Kirk has had to not only reflect on what has happened recently, but on the choices he made as a younger man. While they're focusing on Kirk as a young man, the subject is again brought up by Savick about Kirk and the Kobayashi Maru. It seems Kirk was the only cadet to ever beat the no-win scenario. He reprogrammed the computer so he could rescue the stranded ship.
You never faced that situation. Faced death.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
The USS Reliant surveys a planet to qualify for testing of the Genesis device. Chekhov and his captain beam down to find that someone is living on the planet. It's a brilliant and rage-filled man named Khan. He instantly recognizes Chekhov and uses his influence to gain control of Reliant. I spoke before of the movie being about obsession. Here is another example. Khan's obsession with Kirk is behind every choice he makes in the film. The real difference here is that this mistake is out and looking for a reckoning. To Khan, this isn't revenge, it's justice. Channeling Captain Ahab, he hunts his whale that crippled him years ago. Avenging his dead wife, the lives of the people that died on the barren planet, the obsession has been boiling. Now he has a ship and a thirst to bring down the man responsible. After Chekhov and Terrell fail to kill Kirk, Khan almost deflates as he tells Kirk how he is going to hurt him. He relishes his perceived victory like a Shakespearean villain. It's not until Kirk takes a huge swipe at his ego by escaping Regula with little effort that Khan begins to rattle. Kirk is getting his game back, and that not only pisses off Khan, but ramps up his obsession to the highest level. His crewman even yells in his face, "Sir, you have Genesis." Obsession is what drives Khan into that nebula after the Enterprise. The cat and mouse game through the clouds sets Khan off kilter. Spock reminds Kirk of Khan's lack of experience in commanding a starship. Kirk and Khan are larger than life, and I have to disagree with the majority of people that say they are never in the same scene together. I have to wave a technical flag. The actors never work together, but their characters are in long scenes together throughout the third act. Their ships are them. They are Titans, and they clash like Titans. The Enterprise finally subdues Reliant. Khan's whole crew is now dead, and he only has the one thing left to play. He activates Genesis to detonate. It will kill him and take Kirk with him, just like Ahab.
From hell's heart, I stab at thee.
In his mind, Khan has won. His own life does not matter anymore. He has avenged his wife, his crew, and himself. You could say Khan dies peacefully. The same cannot be said for another. Between these two bitter enemies, these two larger-than-life characters, is one logical Vulcan. For the whole film, Kirk's best friend does what all best friends do. Provide subtle advice, they speak frankly, they even tease. And they say to those that want to hurt you, you want him, you have to go through me. If the Enterprise cannot get main power online, Khan will succeed, and that is something that is simply unacceptable to Spock. Without missing a beat or hesitating in any way, Spock walks quietly off the bridge and into the radioactive inferno. The scene does more than one thing. After he restores power and the Enterprise warps away, there is a birth. A new world is forming out of the chaos and the death that Khan brought. Spock tells Kirk not to grieve. What he did was logical. With only an inch or so of glass between them, Kirk has never felt farther away from his friend and more alone. Kirk sits in his quarters trying to read the gift that his friend gave him. David enters, and I'll again go to bat for this scene because even if it does end with an awkward hug, that's what it's supposed to be. Spock is gone, but here in front of Kirk is another relationship that he can fill his emptiness with. Kirk says he cheated his way out of death so many times. He tells David, "I know nothing." David says he was wrong about Kirk and that he is proud to be his son. That awkward hug you all like to make fun of is another new beginning, and that means the movie has a happy ending. It took everything that happened, all the life, death, and rebirth to make Kirk feel young. As Spock said, change is the essential process of all existence. You want to know why I feel this is the best of the Trek films? You don't need the nostalgia. It's self-contained. It's just a story about a man letting go of obsession, and it just so happens to be a Star Trek film. It has everything. The film has its flaws, like all films, but it's not meant to be perfect. It's meant to be effective, and it is. You and I have learned the song of love, and we sing it well. The song is ageless, passed on, heart to heart, by those who have seen what we see and known what we know, and lovers who have sung before, our love is ours, to have and to share. The miracle is this: the more we share, the more we have.